There seems to be a lot of confusion about labels. And I know some people that tell me that the only place for a label is on the back of a shirt or a jar, and not on a person. But that is the world that we live in, where we talk about labels and how labels are directly related to services and the type of services that you receive or that you don't receive. So, in this episode, we're going to talk about some of the changes that occurred a couple years ago in the world of autism when it comes to labels. About 25 years ago, I remember that was kind of my introduction to having a family member, certainly on the autism spectrum. And we had so many different names, right? We had autism, autistic, PDD, NOS. We had Asperger's. We had just like all these different names, and it was confusing. And what we found often also was that family members who were afraid of autism for their loved one, so say it was their child, they tried to tell them that PDD was somehow better. And for you guys who are listening to me and not seeing me, I'm air quoting that. They thought it was better to have PDD rather than autism or autistic or autism spectrum disorder. And so there was just a massive amount of confusion. And these days, actually, now we're hearing something I guess it's new on the front burner, but it's something that's been around for a long time. It's profound autism. But back in, I think it was 2013, the DSM-5. So the DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. And I know it sounds kind of scary and, I don't know, daunting, but it is the book manual that physicians use when they are diagnosing. So it kind of like lays out these different labels, and not just what we're talking about here, not just autism, but a variety of different things. And then that label or that identifier gets put on, say, medical papers as a diagnosis. Now, I want to add, this isn't to be confused with an educational eligibility, because those two are different. And I meet a lot of families that think, well, I have an autism diagnosis from my doctor, my child's doctor, and that means that my child is now going to get an IEP, so the education plan with autism, as the eligibility. And that is not always the case. I'd say most of the time it is. However, you have to have what's considered a significant impact of the disability on the child's education, as well as needing special education. Now, there's all kinds of different ways to get special education, from intensive all the way up to collaboration, some other stuff. But I meet families sometimes, and actually physicians too, that will say, well, I diagnosed this child, so they're going to get whatever it is out of school. And that's not necessarily true. So just be mindful of that. So for what I'm talking about today, this is actually a diagnosis that it's just the way things are. We need it for services for our insurance mostly to pay for. So I remember when maybe your diagnosis said Asperger's, and you may not be able to get insurance to cover language therapy because it didn't say autism, it said Asperger's. So the thinking was by these people who created the DSM that we want to do two things. We want to streamline understanding. So we want to show that, everybody on this autism spectrum can receive services. And so here are the core characteristics, really no matter where you fall on the spectrum, but you share these common characteristics. And then hopefully, the other goal was to improve access to resources so that a person maybe identified as Asperger's now could obtain language therapy, occupational therapy, and whatever. And so there were definitely people who liked the change, and some people did not like the change. I met many families, and still do today, of kids who are maybe very vocal, maybe even what you might consider socially aggressive, meaning not aggressive like hurting anybody, but aggressive like they really want to have friends. They just really struggle with it, and because of their strong desire to have the social relationship, they may just come across as being, for lack of a better word, pushy to their peers. And some of those kids, their lack of relationships with other kids is the same, and actually sometimes worse, than a child who may not be able to verbally communicate with other kids. And so there was a lot of parents that spent a lot of time sharing their concerns that while my child might be able to do these things, they still really struggle in these areas. And that, nobody can determine whose needs are greater, because it really, with most things, right, it depends upon where you're sitting. If you are a person who you think I need to lose, I don't know, 50 pounds, and then there might be another person who thinks she has to lose 200 pounds. Well, both of them have significant concerns for their own weight, where the one person might think, what are you talking about? It's 50 pounds. It's like nothing, right? But both opinions are very valid and very important to that person and to their happiness and how fulfilled they feel. And so when we talk about a diagnosis, we just really want to be careful not to ever demean anyone else with their opportunities and the label, like I said before, that they may receive or may not receive. Because really what we want for all people is we want them to be able to receive the services that they need in order to make the greatest amount of movement towards their potential. In Finland, from what I've heard, I don't know the educational system there, but from what I've been heard and what I've read, is that they really look at all children as being children who may learn differently than the one sitting next to them. And they help guide all of their kids. So they're less likely to put labels on kids. But in the US, we still do that. And so a label is necessary. But I just want you guys to know that labels do not make a person, but it does give them access to the resources that they need. So we just wanted you guys to be aware that autism is a very broad spectrum. And because you might have an opinion that, oh, these people over here, these are high functioning. Over here, they're low functioning. Again, if you're just listening to me and you're not seeing me, there are air quotes there, because that is, something else that we've really worked hard at getting rid of, the high and low functioning. And we just want everybody to be careful and everybody really just to be focused on your own needs, the needs of your children, and the advocacy skills and tools that you need in order to ensure that they have whatever it is that they need in order to not only receive the services that they need so that they can benefit and grow and develop just like we would want any child, but we also want that individual to be part of the process. So be able to talk to them about what their goals are, knowing that different people communicate differently, and you may have to spend more time or talk to specialists in your area about how to best communicate with this person in order to make sure that they understand what the possibilities are for themselves. And as parents, we've got to be really careful that we're not making all the decisions, especially without that person part of the process. Okay, hopefully you guys got some benefit out of this. I hope that you will check out our website at autismfl.org. You can see this on YouTube. You can listen to it on your favorite podcast channel. And I hope that you will share it. And I will see you again next time.